You're the senior DEA official in charge of enforcement, and the department announced that they weren't going to enforce some drug laws in states that voted to have other type of marijuana policy. And a lot of this is finding its way into my state of Iowa, even though their state laws say it can't happen. What's your view on the department's new policy?
Thank you, Senator. The department put out a policy by which the U.S. attorneys and prosecutors would consider there are 8 different factors in prosecuting cases relative to marijuana. Marijuana is a Schedule I controlled substance. It's illegal. So we're still enforcing the law. But I will tell you, I'm glad you asked me that, Senator, because I have to say this. I've been 27 years as a DEA agent, 34 years in federal government, a father of 6 great kids, and a wife who's hung out with me for 32 years. I've been serving the country since I'm 18 years old. I have to tell you this. And I served in the great state of California for 9 years as a new agent. And I went with you to Redding, California. You don't remember, there was more hair here, when we established an office up there for meth. I must tell you this, because it would be wrong for me to tell you. Going down the path to legalization in this country is reckless and irresponsible. The department has set up factors, sir, and I get that. I'm talking about the long-term impact of legalization in the United States. It scares us. The treatment people are afraid. The education people are afraid. Law enforcement is worried what is going to happen. In every part of the world where this experiment has been tried, it has failed time and time again. And here we are. The voters have decided to do this. It's going to impact the state, the surrounding states, and California's done it, ma'am. You know that. California's turned around and done a lot of great things, what they're doing, what they're seeing, and I wish some people would take example of what's happening. There are more dispensaries in Denver than there are Starbucks.
I think you're telling me that federal law ought to be enforced.
What I'm saying, sir, is the idea somehow that people have in our country, and to the extent that some legislators do, county elected officials do, that this is somehow good for us as a nation, sir. That this is good for the next generation of Americans coming up is wrong. It is a bad thing. And this body will get its door knocked on 10 years from now and say, how did we get where we get? People are going to ask us 10 years from now, how did we get where we're getting? And can I just put it in context with Afghanistan? At the International Drug Enforcement Conference that was held in Moscow, which is a planning and an operational meeting that we have every year, where we partner with new partners. Last year, we were in Moscow, 100 different nations. Can I tell you, we're sitting there, the administrator and I meeting with everyone, whether they be political leaders or law enforcement leaders. Almost everyone looked at us and said, why are you doing this? You're pointing the finger at us as a source state, and yet you turn around. I have no answer for them. I don't have an answer for them. I just don't. In 27 years ago, working in Washington Heights as a young agent, senior agents told me we could never work with Colombia. 27 years later, we have Algerians going to Colombia for best practices. I apologize for my excitement, but this is a bad experiment. It's a bad experiment. And it's going to cost the United States in terms of social costs. It's going to cost us in criminality. We have, ma'am, you need to know this. We have organizations. We just took it down in Bakersfield, and a group that took a marijuana dispensary as a front to launder its meth proceeds. We not a great case with San Francisco DEA, Bakersfield, Columbia, and Miami. This is. The more I'm worried about, the more states that it happen to, they're going to come. You're going to demand from me. You're going to demand from DEA. How are you going to stop that? People think that People think that DEA and law enforcement officers around the world are interested in Billy and his bong and his basement. We're not. We never have been. That's his mother and father's problem. That's not the federal government's problem. That's not Jimmy Capper's problem in DEA. That's a mom and dad problem. What I'm interested in, what DEA has always been interested in, is the trafficking groups that want Billy to be puffing on his bong, the groups that are selling dope to our kids because they live off the backs of addiction. That's what they want. And I think that's sometimes get lost because there's been great things that have been done here in the United States. Been tremendous things that have been done here. But sir, you asked a question that's really, to some extent, not been answered. It's not been addressed. Ma'am, I know you have. I know you both have. But going down this road, so getting back to the department has given us factors on which prosecutors to prosecute cases. And by the way, we've never gone after, and have done that because people thought we're going after small-time traffickers. I've been DEA for 27 years, never arrested an addict, and I don't have any small-time traffickers that we don't have time for that because we're dealing with things like this on a global scale. I apologize for my
I'm going
excitement.
to submit my questions for, three more questions for answer in writing.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah. So
Thank you,
would you
Senator.
folks answer some questions I submit in writing, because I have to go? Thank you.
Thank you
And
very
thank
much,
you all for
Senator
your
Grassley.
participation.
Let me just address Mr. Capper's
I think I'm going to
statement,
stay and
which
listen to what you say.
I see one of great law enforcement frustration, and I tend to agree. I oppose the legalization of marijuana in California with most of law enforcement. We beat it back that time. Whether we'll beat it back the next time, I have no clue. I believe that it is the wrong thing to do socially. I believe that it is a gateway drug. I believe that it leads to other things, and the fronting for methamphetamine is one of them. It's one thing to use it with a doctor's prescription to ease pain, particularly in a terminal situation. I understand that. And there are probably components of certain kinds of marijuana that can be used to treat babies medically. We're seeing that happen. But to say it should be used socially on an ongoing and robust basis, and I think, your analogy that there are more marijuana stores in Denver than Starbucks is an interesting one.